the local media has several times, just in recent history, written editorials chastising us as a council for not changing that. I don't have a problem with making some changes if there's a strong want by the citizens for that. But as I've just said, that I have never received that kind of stuff, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 people total, and that's only in the last 2 years. Up until then, I hadn't seen any requests. So with concurrence of my colleagues, this is what I would like to do. Barry, we'll keep you busy for a little while till you really retire. I would ask that you or your department take a look at other cities and how they handle that issue, and come up with some best practices. And I think, and I can't speak for the whole council and myself, but the thought of putting that up front is reminiscent of the council back in the 70s and 80s and maybe even 90s, where people would come and anybody could come and speak about anything for as long as they wanted. And those meetings went till midnight, 1 in the morning. Personally, I love being on city council, but I don't get paid enough to stay here that long. So I don't want it to go back to that. So if you or your staff could look into that, and could we accommodate that without changing our agenda as it currently is, with the public hearing where citizens can speak about those issues, the action items where the citizens may not speak to that. So if you could look into that, come back with some kind of a recommendation, and then at that point we as a council could discuss that and see if that's something that we think that there really is a mandate for, something that we want to do. So that's my request, if there are others in the council who would concur with that.
Mr.
Sure.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yeah.
When I attended the National League of Cities conference last week, this issue came up. And quite a few cities here in Iowa are doing it. They use the same guidelines as we do at the end, the 5-minute rule. And they said at first a lot of people came, but then it tapered down to after a few months, to the point they had no one coming. But they looked at the accessibility of having it at the beginning for residents, because sometimes they find easier transportation at 6:30 at night, opposed to, like now, we're running into the 9 o'clock hour. So that's one avenue they looked at, and they said it has worked just fine. So.
Mr. President?
Thank you very much. I think that's worthy of consideration. I think it's a good idea that Mr. Lindahl explore it, but it ultimately comes down to the council, the mayor and council, what they think is the best for their situation. I think that we need to increase the opportunity for citizen input because of this. I have heard, and probably many of you heard, that oftentimes citizens read or hear of an issue on Friday, and then we vote on it on Monday. And it's like, wow, that is a fast, that is a fast turnover, especially on action items. So here's what I would like to propose. I know that the city staff comes at the very beginning, especially Mr. Van Milligan has them come, which is a courtesy to us for the consent items. So I think we should absolutely have our presentations, our consent items, and then our boards and commissions and public hearings done. And then right before the action items, we could allow, depending on what the council wants to do, 2 or 3 minutes so that they can speak to any action item right there, and then go through the action items. And of course, it could all be the same if the mayor wanted to just allow anybody to speak on an action item, but he could do that now. And it's not happening, and maybe this might be a way to not inconvenience city staff who are here, for our convenience and our courtesy, and yet allow the citizens an opportunity to speak briefly. At least you can say a lot in 2 or 3 minutes about the action items that right now, they're not having any input. So that's something I was hoping that we could consider as well. There's many good suggestions, and I'd be happy to listen to others.